Assalamualaikum. I will be presenting about clause number 4 and 5. For clause number 4, it is about the content of the organization. For 4.1, understanding the needs and expectation of the interested parties, content for all the ISO are the same where the organization should determine external and internal issue relevant to its purpose. Next, for 4.2, it is about understanding the needs and expectation of worker and interested parties. The content for each of ISO are almost similar, but the difference is in ISO 9001 where the organization need to monitor and review information related to the interested party and its requirement. For 4.3, it is about determining the scope of each organization. The similarity in these three ISO is where the organization should consider an internal and external issue by referring to the context in 4.1 and obligation or any requirement required in 4.2. The difference is in ISO 40001, the organization should consider the organizational units, functional and physical boundaries, and its authority and ability to exercise control and influence. For class 5, it focuses on leadership. For class 5.1, leadership and commitment. The difference is in ISO 9001. ISO 9001 divided into two subtopics, general and customer focus. General content in ISO 9001 is quite similar to other ISO. The content in ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 is listed from A to J, but ISO 45001 extend until M. The example of similarity for all the ISO is taking the accountability for the effectiveness of each organization. One of the content in 5.1.2 in ISO 9001 is focused on enhancing customer satisfaction. For 5.2 organizational policy, this section talk about the top management responsibility to establish, implement and maintain the policy that is suitable with the organization. ISO 9001 is divided into two subtopics. 5.2.1 Establishing the quality and policy. The content in this subtopic is similar to other ISO. For 5.2.2 Communicating the quality policy, the content listed is also similar with other ISO. For example, the policy for each organization should be available to interested party and as documented information. Last one, for 5.3 Organizational roles, responsibility and authorities. Top management should assign the responsibility and authority within each of the organization. For ISO 45001 and ISO 14001, the content listed are similar. The difference is in ISO 9001, which ensure the integrity is maintained when changes occur and processes are delivered according to their purpose.
Hi, my name is Nuratika. I'm going to explain about clause 8, which is planning. All of the ISO have the same general about action to address risks and opportunities, which the organization shall consider and determine the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed to give assurance that the management system can achieve its intended outcomes, to prevent or reduce undesired effects, and to achieve continual improvements. Next, for ISO 14001, they involve in environmental aspects. The organization shall take into account the change including planned or new developments, new modified activities, products and services, and also abnormal conditions and reasonably foreseeable emergency situations. For ISO 9001, the organization shall plan the action to address risks and opportunities, plan how to integrate and implement the action into its quality management system processes, and also plan how to evaluate the effectiveness of the actions. For ISO 45001, they involve in hazard identification and assessment of risks and opportunities. For hazard identification, organizations shall identify how work is organized, social factors, leadership, and the culture in the organization. For assessment of OH&S risks and other risks, the organization shall establish a process to assess its risk from the identified hazard while taking into account the effectiveness of existing control. And also for the assessment of OH&S opportunities and other opportunities, the organization shall establish opportunities to enhance its performance while taking into account planned changes to the organization, its policies, its processes, or its activities. Next, compliance obligation for ISO 14001. The organization shall determine and have access to the compliance obligations related to its environmental aspect and determine how these compliance obligations apply to the organization. For ISO 45001, the organization shall determine and have access to up-to-date legal requirements and other requirements and determine how these requirements apply to the organization and take these requirements into account. Planning action only apply to ISO 14001 and 45001. The organization shall plan to take action to address the risks and opportunities to address its legal requirement and other requirements, and also how to integrate and implement the action into its management system processes and evaluate the effectiveness of this action. All of the ISO apply the same objective and planning. The objective shall be consistent, measurable, monitored, communicated, and also updated. For its planning to achieve its objective is about what will be done, what resources will be required, who will be responsible when it will be completed, and how the results will be evaluated. Next, planning of changes only apply to ISO 9001. The organization shall consider the purpose of the changes and potential consequence, the integrity of the quality management system, the availability of resources, and the allocation or reallocation of responsibilities and authorities.
Clause number 7 is support. Clause 7.1, which is resources. The similarity has been found between these three types of ISO, which are ISO 14001, ISO 9001, and also ISO 45001. In general, all these types of organization shall determine and also provide the resources needed for the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and also continual improvement for each types of management systems, including EMS, which is Environmental Management System, Quality Management Systems, and also Occupational Health and Safety Management System. Okay, it has been found that there is a difference in ISO 9001 compared to the other two types of ISO, which is the organization of ISO 9001 also consider the other few types of resources, including people, infrastructure, environment for the operation and of processes, and monitoring and measuring resources. The organization of ISO 9001 shall determine, provide, and also maintain all the workers involved, infrastructure, and environment towards the effectiveness of the quality management system and its operation processes. Monitoring and measuring resources is one of the resources that needs to be considered by ISO 9001 in terms of general, measurement traceability, and also organizational knowledge. For clause number 7.2, which is competence, there is similarity that has been found between these three types of ISO, which are the organization shall determine the necessary competence of all the workers under its control by referring to appropriate education, training, and also experience. The organization also take actions and evaluates the effectiveness of the actions taken. So for the difference, there is a difference that has been found between ISO 9001 and also ISO 45001 compared to ISO 14001, where in ISO 9001 and also 45001, there is the organization retain appropriate documented information as evidence of competence. For clause number 7.3, which is awareness, there are a lot of similarities that has been found in these three types of ISO, which is the organization shall ensure all the workers to be aware of the environmental, quality, and also occupational health and safety policy, and also their objective. And the workers should be aware of their contribution towards the effectiveness of their management systems. Instead of that, the workers also should be aware of the implications of not confirming the management system requirement. What makes ISO 45001 different to the other two types of ISO is the organization of ISO 45001 should be aware on how to reduce, eliminate, or remove the hazards to protect all the workers from danger. So So let's move to clause number 7.4, which is communication. There are similarities that has been found between ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, which is the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the processes needed for relevant internal and external communication. While for ISO 9001, there is a difference between the other two types of ISO, where the organization shall or required to determine the internal and external communication that is relevant to the quality management system. So next, clause number 7.5, which is documented information. The similarities has been found in these three types of ISO, where in general, the organizations of the management systems shall include documented information required by the international standard, and also documented information determined by the organization as being necessary for the effectiveness of the each management system. Other similarity that has been found is creating and updating. The organization shall ensure appropriate identification and description, format, review and approval for suitability and adequacy. In terms of control of documented information, it shall be determined by the organization to ensure it is available and suitable to be used when it is needed, and it is adequately protected. To control the documented information, the organization shall consider the following activities, which are distribution, access, retrieval and use, storage and preservation, control of changes, and retention and also disposition.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Siti Aisyah binti Azhar. Today I will present about the difference between ISO 14001-2015, ISO 9001-2015 and ISO 45001-2018 in operational session. In ISO 40001-2015, there is two parts in operation session, which is operational planning and control and emergency preparedness and response. First, I will explain a bit about operational planning and control. The organization shall establish, implement, control and maintain the process needed to meet environmental management system requirement and to implement the action identified in 9.1 and 9.2, which is in planning clause, by establishing operating criteria for the process and implementing control of the process in accordance with the operating criteria. Next, I will tell you about the emergency preparedness and response. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the process needed to prepare for and respond to potential emergency and situation identified in 9.1.1. For ISO 45001-2018, I will explain first about operational planning and control, which can be divided into general, eliminating hazard and reducing OSH risk, management of changes, and procurement. For general, the organization shall plan, implement, control, and maintain the process needed to meet requirement of the OSH management system and to implement the action determined in clause 6, which is in planning clause. For eliminating hazards and reducing OSH risk, the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process for elimination of hazard and reduction of OSH risk using the following hierarchy of control. First, eliminate the hazard. Substitute the less hazardous process, operation, material, or equipment. Use engineering control or reorganization of work. Use administrative control, including training. Use adequate personal protective equipment. The second part is emergency preparedness and response. Same as in ISO 14001-2015, the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process needed to prepare for and respond to potential emergency situation as identified in 9.2.1, which is in planning clause. The ISO 9001-2015 is a little bit different from the ISO 14001-2015 and ISO 45001-2018. The operational part, which contains 7 parts, which does not include emergency preparedness and response. For the operational and control, the organization shall plan, implement, and control the process needed to meet the requirement for the provision of product and services and to implement the action determined in clause 6. The requirement for product and services has 4 parts, which is customer communication, determine the requirement for product and services, review of the requirement for product and services, and changes to requirement for product and services. For ISO 45001-2018 and ISO 14001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. For the design and development of product and services, it can be divided into 6 parts, which contain general, design and development planning, design and development input, design and development control, design and development output, and design and development changes. For ISO 45001-2018 and ISO 14001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. For control of externally provided process, product and services, which is general, type and extent of control, and information of external providers. For ISO 45001-2018 and ISO 40001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. For the production and services provision, which is the control of production and services provision, classification and traceability, property belonging to customer or external provider, prevention, post-delivery activities, and control of changes. For ISO 45001-2018 and 14001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. For the release of the product and services, the organization shall implement plan arrangement at appropriate stage to verify that the product and services requirement have been met. For ISO 45000-2018 and ISO 14001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. The control of non-conforming outputs which can be divided into two parts. The organization shall ensure that output that do not conform to their requirement are identified and controlled to prevent their unintended use or delivery. Next is the organization shall retain documented information that describe the non-conformity, describe the action taken, and describe any concession obtained, and identify the authority deciding the action in respect of the non-conformity. For ISO 45001-2018 and ISO 14001-2015, the corresponding clause does not exist. Thank you.
The next clause is performance evaluation. In performance evaluation, there are three main divisions, which are monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Second, internal audit, and third is management review. Both ISO 40001 and ISO 45001 also has evaluation of compliance. But ISO 9001 has customer satisfaction and analysis and evaluation. Evaluation of compliance is where the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the processes needed to evaluate fulfillment of its compliance obligation. Customer satisfaction is where the organization shall monitor the customer's perception of the degree which their needs and expectations have been fulfilled. Analysis and evaluation is where the organization shall analyze and evaluate appropriate data and information arising from its measurement and monitoring. The second main division under performance evaluation is internal audit, ISO 9001. In internal audit, it is most focused on where the organization shall conduct internal audit at planned intervals to provide information on whether the quality management system is conforms to the organization's own requirements for its QMS and the requirements of the international standard, and also whether the quality management system is effectively implemented and maintained. ISO 9001. In internal audit, it is most focused on where the organization shall conduct internal audit at planned intervals to provide information on whether the quality management system is conforms to the organization's own requirements for its QMS and the requirements of the international standard, and also whether the quality management system is effectively implemented and maintained. Second, ISO 40001 is where the organization shall conduct internal audit at planned intervals to provide information on whether environmental management system is conforms to the organization's own requirements and also the requirements of the international standard, and it also whether the EMS is effectively implemented and maintained. And lastly, it is also same with ISO 45001, where the internal audit will provide information on whether the OH, occupational health and safety management, is effectively implemented or maintained and also conforms to the organization's own requirements. For both ISO 40001 and ISO 45001, they have internal audit program. Internal audit program is where the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the internal audit program, including the frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning requirements, and reporting of its internal audits. Why? For other than that, ISO 45001 also has planning under the internal audit program. The third division for performance evaluation is management review. For ISO 9001, the top management shall review the organization's quality management system at planned intervals to ensure its continuous suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness and alignment with the strategic direction of the organization. Then, for ISO 40001, Under the management review, top management shall review the organization environmental management system at planned intervals to ensure its continuous suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. And lastly, for ISO 45001, the top management shall review the organization's occupational safety and health at planned intervals to ensure its continuous suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. Under the management review, ISO 9001 has more two clauses under the management review, which are the management review inputs and the management review outputs. While ISO 40001 and ISO 45001 have only management review outputs.
All of these ISO are talking about the same general, which is the organization shall determine opportunities for improvement and also implement necessary action to achieve the intended outcomes. In addition, ISO 9001 also talking about correcting, preventing or reducing undesired effects, and improving the performance and the effectiveness of the quality management systems. All of these ISO also talking about the same non-conformity and corrective action, which is the organization shall react to the non-conformity, evaluate the need for action to eliminate the causes, implement any action if needed, review the effectiveness of any corrective action taken, update risks and opportunities, and make changes if needed. ISO 14001 and ISO 9001 apply the same continual improvement. The organization shall continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of its management system. For ISO 45001, the organization shall enhance its performance, promote a culture that supports its management system, promote the participation of workers, communicating the relevant result of continual improvement, and maintaining and retaining documented information as evidence.